Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Grow Yours podcast, where we talk to advisors, coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, and everybody in between to learn about their business, what they do, and how they help people. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Bryan McDonald. Super, super fun loving guy. We've had one conversation so far, super relaxed, and I'm really excited for our conversation. He is a partner at On Purpose Growth and has a very clear voice on how you should be growing your business through sales. So, Bryan, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Appreciate the invite, man. I'm excited for this, Giuseppe.
Yes, so am I. So, before we get into it, I want everybody listening slash watching YouTube, Spotify, different things. Um, who are you? What's your professional background? What's your entrepreneurial journey looking like?
Oh yeah. Uh, like most people's entrepreneurial journey, it's not a straight line. I've been in sales my whole 23, 24 plus year career. Uh, and uh, I actually didn't try to get into sales. My first job out of college, I applied for a marketing job and they gave me a sales job inside account manager. So I kind of fell into this, and that was a corporate job. At I think it's the end of the first year. I didn't stay there longer than 2 years. They gave me a raise on Monday, and I quit on Friday. I was like, I can't do this. And after that, majority of the business I got recruited into were businesses where they basically told me, hey, Bryan, here's what we do. Here's a desk, a phone, and let me know when you need help. So I had to figure out, how do I differentiate myself? How do I find clients? What's my sales process? How do I convert people? I had to figure it out all on my own, right? Um, and after doing that for God knows how many years, 15-ish years, about 10 years ago, we started On Purpose Growth with my partner Jeff and I, because we wanted to help entrepreneurs uh, figure out what we've been able to figure out in businesses, and make money with other entrepreneurs, not just for entrepreneurs working for them. On Purpose Growth is a coaching and consulting firm. On the consulting side, we're doing fractional sales leadership, sales consulting for established businesses who have hit some plateau in sales, and they've tried to throw everything at it. Marketing, unicorn salesperson, unicorn sales manager. They're just at their wits' end and they need to think differently. And on the coaching side, working with people who develop some skill or expertise in corporate America, and now they're utilizing that skill to serve small and medium-sized business owners. They're really good at the thing that they do, but sales is just this kind of foreign thing. They want to serve their clients, and but they don't really. I don't want to say they don't really want to go find clients. They're very uncomfortable finding clients, and they want a better way to do it. And I've just developed, from not intentionally being in sales, I just developed an approach that was the uh, sell without selling approach that makes it easier for people. So I'm helping people now figure out strategy. Who do I go after? Who do I differentiate? How do I differentiate? How do I go to the market? And then how do I execute on that in the market? And I've helped people go from, a client, Matt, when I met him, $75,000, $100,000 in revenue, to now he's at 2.5 million. I've helped people go from a half a million to a million, right? Typically you're pretty ambitious, if you want to work with me. So it's been fun, and I love doing this. I know, just like you, I love helping that profile, because their knowledge and wisdom is needed in the world, and I'm just helping them get it out there.
Couldn't agree more. The coaching consulting world is something that kind of gets a bad rep sometimes for
Hmm.
no reason. And I think it's because everybody's not sure how a coach or consultant can help them. And sometimes they expect you to come in and do the work for them, but that's not really their role.
No.
The role is to come in and show you how to do it so you can do it yourself and you no longer need them at some point. So tell me a little bit about what it was like building a business with your partner, Jeff. I know I have a partner and I find it makes everything a lot easier when you have somebody to bounce ideas off of. So what does your responsibility split look like and how it's been
Yeah,
helpful?
it's been helpful because we both stay in our own lanes. Um, Meaning, like, he runs the consulting side, I'm the coaching side. Like, when he actually approached me to start the business, and he said, "Hey, like, I want to go help entrepreneurs, but I need a coach in the business. I want to coach in business. And I've seen you in a room talking to people. You're just a natural at this, right?" So he's been great to not only bounce things off of, but also, be a mentor too. Like, "Hey, I can't figure this out. How have you done this in the past?" Right? Somebody that I can go to, and vice versa, right? He comes to me for things like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time thinking through this." Uh, when there's consulting questions, he's able to help me. When there's coaching questions, he comes to me, right? Vice versa. And then we stay in our own lanes. It's like, "Hey, let's figure out what you're really good at. Let's figure out what I'm really good at, and let's just exploit that in the most positive way, and do this together instead of alone." Right? Because I think a lot of coaches and consultants are alone out there. I was on a call with a bunch of fractional executives yesterday. There was about 15 of us, I think, and somebody brought up the fact that this type of work is isolating. Not that you're trying to isolate yourself. It's just you're alone in the business, grinding, having to do work, and it's isolating. And having somebody, just having the group, or having a partner or other people to bounce things off of, makes it less isolating. And I have yet to meet anybody who can figure out things on their own and do it with a healthy, and not get into a negative mindset, right? So I'm big on getting help, being in community, not being isolated, doing things with people, because that's really where coaching and consulting makes money, is collaborating with other people, whether it's a client or a partner.
Couldn't agree more, honestly. The isolation sometimes it'll get to you. It really will. It'll rip you up inside, and then you're just
Oh yeah,
like, oh, do I even want to do this? Let's just throw it all in the garbage and go do something else.
I know, right?
Okay, so let's talk about finding somebody and finding somebody to bounce ideas off of, and specifically in sales. And let's talk about some strategies that you implement into these your clients, and how you help these service experts to grow their businesses.
I think this will probably resonate with you based on what you do. Is the one way I help them find clients is I help them focus. Uh, and that's multifaceted, meaning helping them not be everything to everybody, because that's the most unfocused approach. So it's really helping people understand, like, "Hey, let's the way we call it is less but better. Focus on less of the marketplace, but do it better than anybody else."
Mhm.
Right? And that's focus, right? Choose your slice of the market and go after it and own it. Because if you're a consultant, let's say, with a business of less than 10 employees, or a single consultant, there is more than enough business to go around out there. Like, you can't, uh, how do I say this? Uh, you can't own a big slice of the market. It's almost impossible, right? And there's enough niches, and there's enough people in certain niches, that if you just focus on one and you get really good at it, you don't have to worry about making money. uh, and strategy, focus, differentiation, everything we're talking about here, it's as much as it's about as much as what you don't do, as much as what you actually do. Right? So, like, yesterday, I was talking to somebody who's got a HR consulting, fractional consulting practice, and he had about, I'm going to guess, about 10 different types of industries that that they said, "Hey," in this executive brief that he built for his business. He's like, "Hey, let's talk about this." I'm like, "That's way too many." He goes, "Yeah, I can't decide which one." And as I talked to him, he actually did have a decision on ones they liked. There were three of them, and all he needed to do was, like, bounce it off somebody and get some feedback on, like, "Hey, here's why you're from based on what you're telling me, here's why you should focus on these three, and here's why you should to X out the rest of those seven." And once he took out all the seven other ones, his body language completely changed. he got clear on like, yeah, I should do this, this, and this, and he could see the future. But with all the options of what to do, were confusing him. And in sales, it's kind of akin to in sales, the saying is a confused buyer never buys. Well, if you have a really big strategy, a confused entrepreneur is never going to have success, right? They're never going to have success, right? I love helping people figure out and get really clear on the I'm going to use the word niche, focus synonymously on that, and then go after that. Because what I found to be true, it's kind of like an equation. I think it's equation. I got to figure out how to present this better, but and it may be fine. But it's clarity, confidence, action. The level of clarity that you have is directly proportionate to the level of confidence that you have. The level of confidence that you have is directly proportionate to the outcomes your actions produce. So low clarity, low confidence, low outcomes of action, or low action at all. High clarity, high confidence, high output of action. And that's what I found to be true is when people get really clear about their offer, their strategy, their ideal client profile, they get the confidence goes through the roof. And therefore, when they take actions, uh, they start producing the outcomes that they're looking for, right? It's simple, but not easy to execute on, only because we're complicated people, right? Like the way the mind works, it wants to cast a really wide net to catch anything that it can, and that's actually the slowest path to growth. In my experience, in my opinion, do you see the same in your business?
Yeah, totally. So one of the first things we do when we come on to a new client is we define their go-to-market strategy, right? So even if you're making 5 million a year, 10 million a year, some crazy like some great numbers like that, you might have just gotten there because that wide net was working for a bit of
Yep.
time, and now you're like, huh, my business is stalling. I haven't been able to grow revenue for at least a quarter, 2 quarters maybe. And I just don't know why. And it's usually because their marketing efforts are not dialed in, and you're not dialed into the people that are making you the most money. And that takes some analytics. You got to go into the business, see what type of people are generating the greatest LTV, the people that are the easiest to close, the people that you find that you're maximizing your time out of, and then you develop a marketing and sales ecosystem that drives towards that one niche. Or it may not, I guess niche is the right word, but sometimes it's industry agnostic. It may not even
Yeah.
be there. And it's just it's a business type. It could be service based. It could be
Yeah.
your specifically B2C, B2B. It all varies. But what the first thing you need to do when you see stagnation in your growth is step back, look, and say, okay, who am I serving the best, using the least amount of time and making the most amount of money, and then just drive right into that.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably talk a whole podcast on thinking about strategy and niche. And niche to me, right, is not just industry. It's not just industry. It could be a specific problem, right? A problem that is common among a bunch of different industries, right? But it's being clear about what's that I call one thing, right? And I want people to understand that, right? It's not just industry. It's about like, hey, if you can clearly articulate the go-to market strategy of here's the problem, aka the niche I'm solving or working for, and then going after that, it saves a lot. And your story about a $5 million company not being able to grow past that or know how to repeat success definitely resonates. Like I've met individual consultants who've got, you know, making $750,000 to $1 million. And they start working with me because they say, Bryan, I don't know how to repeat that success because I used to get referrals from my peers. I got referrals from the certain associations or companies I've been partnered with that were basically layups, and they're not doing it anymore. And I've actually never reached out to my network or never reached out to anybody cold, and I need to figure out how to do this. So just because you see somebody that has success doesn't mean they have it figured out. Or if you if you're on the rise and you can't say to yourself or articulate to somebody else, hey, here's how I repeat that success, you actually got lucky.
100%. And I'm lucky enough to figure that out at a much younger age, but I'll run into
Yeah.
entrepreneur like I'm only 25 and I run into entrepreneurs who are in like their 30s, 40s and they're like, "My business has been going so well." And I'm like, "Well, what about your business is the part that's going well?" And they're like, "Well, all of it. We do so much." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay. All right, we got a lot to analyze here." But no, that's not necessarily a bad thing either because it means that you have all the tools and all the skills in the background to do a lot. But if you take it's kind of like I'm trying to think of a metaphor here, but let's say I'm one person and I have two hands, 10 fingers, right?
Hmm.
And I'm playing the piano and I'm hitting every single key at once, right?
Hmm.
That sound kind of sounds weird, but it's still impressive that I'm able to stretch my hands across everything.
Yeah.
But if you want to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, which is a classic song, been going around forever, you're only touching 3 keys, but you're touching them the right way,
The right way.
and you're doing it in the right order, and you're confident in touching every single one of these keys because it's such a short song and there's only 3 of them. So if you could constantly reproduce that confidence in your marketing and or sales strategy, you're gonna take your $5 million business and turn it into a $100 million business. Not overnight, but it's totally possible.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you shared that because there was a on the consulting side, there was a client that we worked with who uh, dad handed business over to daughter. He was still in the business. It was about $10 million in revenue, and they were stuck at $10 million for the 5 years that she had been running the company. We went to their top 5 to 7 clients. I forget the number because it was a little while back, and ask them with our client and ask them like, hey, here's the value we think we bring. We're on time, we're reliable, we always bring price. And to the T, every single one of them had said, we don't care about that. We knew dad when he had a dream in a truck because they sold to the construction industry mostly. And like we know him and he always takes care of price. We don't really care about that stuff. So it's the old like Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here isn't going to get you there, right? What got them to 10 million is keeping them stuck at 10 million. They actually don't have a go to market strategy because the go to market strategy from 0 to 10 million was dad. From 10 million and above is going to be something completely different.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And that's why sometimes when I'm having these conversations with potential clients, I go to show them like specific case studies and I'm like, yeah, this looks really great, right? But it's somebody and I'm like, they did this in such a short amount of time, but theirs was already dialed in. So then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to explain to you that yours is going to take longer because you're not dialed in, which also causes some friction. But at the same time, you got to be truthful in your value, and you got to be showing people like, hey, you need to break down X, Y, and Z in order to achieve A, B, and C.
Yeah, you need to simplify how you break down your value in a way that your prospects understand it and it's from their perspective, not necessarily yours, right?
Mhm.
Like uh lack of a better term, they don't care what you think. They only care what they're experiencing, right? They only care
Yeah,
what they're experiencing. And usually it's just like a few degrees off of what you're presenting. Well, I'll talk about the guy I talked to yesterday. He showed me um how do I describe this? The problems that he solved for clients, and every single one of them are 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 what he did. It was not the problem they had, right? So, for instance, what he presented was I build processes for streamline hiring and onboarding. But the problem he solved, right? But the problem he was solving was a revolving door of employees, right? So it's like, hey, it's not gonna. If you talk about, hey, I resolved a revolving door of employees for companies that need to hire people because everybody's leaving. that's what they're going to resonate with. They're not thinking I need a better onboarding process. They're like, no, no, come talk to me about that revolving door. It's slightly off. It's going to create the same thing that you do for them. You just have to talk about it in a specific way that matters to them. Uh, uh, what he was talking about, what mattered to him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you basically just described what marketing is.
Exactly, exactly, right?
Getting into the brain of the person who needs your
Yeah,
help and explaining in their terms, and I almost said lay terms, but that's a little rude.
yeah,
But
no, you're good.
in their terms, exactly how what you do is going to benefit them, not on your standards, on their standards, and that's something a lot of business owners struggle with, and that's why I guess people like me and you exist.
Yeah, it's okay because it's the human condition. Um, what I mean by that is the number one thing we like to talk about is ourselves.
Oh yeah,
When we're not talking about ourselves, the number one thing we like to think about is ourselves. So it's the human condition. So if we understand that, right, and it's like, hey, they're going to listen to me more if I talk about them and their perspective versus me and my perspective. They're actually going to turn me off if I talk about me and what I do. I got to talk about them and their problems, right? And usually people kind of get that because it's easier. It's easier to understand it. And again, like I said, it's the human condition, right? You just have to take a step back and think about this slightly differently to really get the results that you're looking for.
yeah. I 100% agree, and it's funny because as in marketing and sales, people are like, "Oh, marketer, like you're trying to trick people into finding stuff." In sales, it's like, "Oh, you sleazy, you just want people to buy things." It's like, no, like we're actually sitting here and thinking about you the entire time. I haven't
Yep.
thought about myself once in the conversation actually, and it's just a big misconception that people have because I guess they just don't understand the process and how it works as much.
No, I agree, and I just think that there's been the old school sales tactics. I don't think work anymore because people see them. I'll say it this way: um, people have moved to nobody wants to be sold, everybody wants to buy. And I've created situations where people feel comfortable buying. And typically, the precursor to that is I talk about things that are relevant to them from their perspective, right? Like um, when I meet with people and explain who I work with, I've had people go, "Oh, that sounds like me." I'm like, that's perfect, right? Like that's the response that I'm looking for, right? Uh, they're self-identifying with it because it's relevant to them, right? The whole, hey, I want to sell without selling. My prospect profile literally thinks that to themselves, right? Like there's people that said, hey, it's kind of like you're kind of like in my head. I'm like, yeah, I am. I know, right? Because I'm thinking about this from your perspective, right? I'm repeating things that my clients say to me about how they were feeling when they came in, right? And then I just scaled that.
Totally makes sense, and that kind of relates to something else I want to talk about, which is not only you want to make people comfortable buying, but in your position, you want to make the people who need people to buy stuff from them comfortable selling. And
Oh,
what do you see as one of the biggest issues with helping leaders become comfortable with selling their product or service?
um, yeah, that uh, they sell themselves the wrong way.
Hmm.
Because typically what's happening is the buyer is buying them then their product and service because they already know that they have the basic skills, right? Like you're in that lane. I'm just trying to figure out if you can help me, kind of thing. And I think what people try to do is my friend Ty came up with this. This is not mine. They do value vomits when they're selling to people. Is they just dump value on people. They never get the prospect to do most of the talking, um, uh, and then they just piss people off or scare them away, right? and they don't really sell themselves, right? I tell people the best way to sell yourself is to listen and ask really good questions, because your questions are the things that illustrate your expertise before you get to explain the background of your expertise. It's like the explaining your schooling or your certifications or whatever is just grounding to the prior information you provided in the conversation. I'll give you an example. This is kind of a backward example, but there's a group of consultants I work with that use the Colby profile to in their business. Every one of the consultants get it, so they understand themselves, and then they can sell it to clients sometimes. And I was having a conversation with a now client. She was a prospect at the time, talking about her problems. We were talking about things, and at the end, I said, "Oh, hey, what's your Colby profile?" And she was a high fact finder and a high a quick start. So she'll move fast when she has a lot of information. And I'm like, "Oh." I said to her literally, "Oh, that makes complete sense based on everything that you just told me. Like this grounded like everything I heard. Like, okay." And that's how it works. It's like you have a conversation with somebody about a prospect, you dig into their problems with them, you do more listening and asking questions than you do making statements. And then when they say, okay, like, hey, so how did you get here? It's like, oh, well, I did, 15 years at Motorola, and I did 10 years at BP, and I was in the engineering part. And they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Based on everything you said to me, that makes sense that that's what you did. Okay, you're the real deal. You not can only talk to me about it, you can illustrate to me about your experience doing it. And people, they mistakenly switch those. They talk about themselves, and think about the principle I talked to you about people love to talk about themselves and think about themselves. So if you and I were going into a meeting and you were a prospect of mine and I started talking about myself and my background, within 7 seconds you would stop listening.
Yeah,
You'd be
probably.
present. You'd be present, but you'd be stopped listening, right? Because it's not about you. You're thinking to yourself, what's this have to do about me? When's he going to stop talking? When am I going to be able to explain my problems? And I think that when it comes to sales, people have these sales conversations completely backwards. And it's a big reason why they don't convert uh, enough or as many opportunities as they get, is because just getting a lead doesn't mean you've mastered sales. The only
Oh
time
yeah.
you've mastered sales is generating the lead, taking it through your sales process, and converting it to a client. And it's a sale the day they pay and show up for the first meeting. That's the
Oh yeah.
sale,
Big
right?
time. Without a doubt. And that's something with my clients, I try to explain to them. I'm like, hey, we did all the marketing, right? We set up the system. These people already know about you, what you do, and how you do it. That's the whole point of the marketing system. When they get to the sales call, just let them explain why they came. Like every single time, the first question should be like, why did you take this call today? It's probably one of the most important things you could ask them.
Totally.
And a lot of people, they come in, they frame really hard and they follow like really strict sales scripts, and they're like, all right, I have to say this first and I have to control the conversation or else this person will never buy from me. And it's like, well, yes, you need to control this conversation and they need to understand why you're here, but that doesn't mean come in and punch them in the face with it. Like they already no, yeah, they already understand like what we're doing here, and they wouldn't have came to you in the first place if they didn't understand what we're doing here. But you need to understand what they are doing here.
You control you control the conversation through questions.
Correct.
I can listen for 90% of the conversation and control the whole thing from the get-go, right? And that's one thing that people don't understand. They feel that uh how do I say that? Not the initiating. They need to be doing something active, right? Like talking, positioning, things like that to control the conversation. And that's not true. The only thing you need to do to control the conversation is ask questions, right? Because here's an example. It can tell me where to go into the conversation, right? Um, uh, like I had a prospect who needed to train up a bunch of commercial real estate agents, right? And when her and I were first talking, I said to her, like, okay, so, and I know they either have problems finding clients or converting clients, right? Or both. And I said to her, and I asked her that, I was like, hey, so is this more about like converting clients or is it about uh, finding them? And she goes, it's more about finding clients. I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's talk about that. Now I just moved the conversation to there. I found like which direction to go. Let's go there. Now I ask questions there. So now I'm controlling the conversation, diving deeper into those things, and that's an easy way rather than telling her the suite of my services and what I can do and trying to get her to pick one or trying to get her to buy all of them. It's like, no, okay, we're gonna co-design an offer based on finding prospects, and that's what her and I did. At the end, because she pushed me in that direction. She gave me the info. So it's like really people have misconceptions on how to control sales conversations, and that's one of the major ways to do it.
I could totally relate. I jumped on with a prospect the other day who was a vice president, I think. I don't remember. Not really important, but he
Some
came
big
in.
title.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He came in and he was like, "All right, I'm about to control this conversation. Like, he's not about to sell me anything." And I was like, "Okay." And I just sat there and I listened to him, and I was like, and I literally asked him, I was like, "Can I ask you some more questions so that I could understand what you need a little bit more, and then I'll design you a plan custom to you." And he was like, "Oh, really?" Yeah. He was like, "Ask away." And then all of a sudden, it completely flipped. And
Flipped.
then I'm sitting there and I'm asking him everything, and we're creating a marketing plan for him right now as we speak. And it's just like that. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and that one thing that you mentioned there is he came in going, I'm going to control this conversation. That general posture, not specifically I'm going to control this conversation, but the posture of I'm going to protect myself from this salesperson, because I'm going to choose to buy versus having this person selling me something is how buyers show up. And you have to do whatever you can to break that down. Like you did the whole pattern interrupt, as I call it, and was like, hey, like, can I ask you questions? You didn't act the way that he thought you were supposed to act. And then he couldn't act in the way he was going to act because it's like, hey, I can't respond to this, right? And then you open him up and it's like, oh, this is a real guy. Just wants to help me. Okay, let's open up and I'll let him help me. Like that's the dynamic you need to create. And when you do that, it's magic happens.
100%. Couldn't agree more. So now it's time to do a little dance because
Okay.
you originally were ready to you said you applied for a marketing job, ended up in sales.
Oh yeah.
I'm a marketing guy, and usually this is either yin and yang or we're running into each other like bulls because we
Oh
can't
yeah.
agree on anything. So, in your opinion, this is a risky question. What's more important, marketing or sales?
Marketing or sales. I don't think it's an or. Uh, I'm going to riff off your comment.
Okay.
The thing that drives me nuts at companies that have established marketing and established sales team is they think they're adversaries,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not, right? They should be. It should be a continuous line. That's not. It should be a smoothly move from marketing into sales. It should be a smooth process or like a smooth transition. There shouldn't be hiccups. I think sales should be communicating to marketing like, hey, here's why these things are good. Here's why they aren't. Let's message this. Let's understand how you're messaging them so I know where to pick up the conversation. Um, um, I think it's ridiculous when marketing and sales teams don't work together. I think it's ridiculous, kind of in the same tone, when there's two different, I'm going to call it divisions or uh, portions of a company that could refer each other and they don't do it. I see that at sales and marketing. Like I used to be in the insurance space and I worked in companies where health insurance was one division, property and casualty was the other. and the two sides wouldn't introduce each other to their clients. And it's like, this is low hanging fruit, right? This is like the marketers won't introduce the salesperson, right? It's ridiculous. Like, right. So I think whether you're an established company or you're a consultant on your own, you need to understand how sales and marketing work together and create something where they're jointed and not disjointed, right? Because uh, it's you're wasting money if it's not, right? Like, it's like, why are you spending money on either of them, right? Like, pick one or the other. Uh, go with all sales or just go with all marketing. But it's useless having both. And they should talk to each other, right? It's a synchronistic system, right? They're not systems that sit on their own. They work together.
Oh yeah. Part of what we do, right? We'll come in and we'll build you this robust marketing system using different avenues to bring the leads to the sales team. But then when we're done making it, right? Done in air quotes, we we have to test it, obviously. And then basically the whole basis of is it working properly is the sales team. Because they're the ones talking to the leads and they're the ones who are like, "Hey, these people are either are in the wrong economic bracket. They can't afford our service. They are coming in and they're expecting one thing and we're giving them another. And so basically, without the sales team, the marketing team can't really excel in what they do. And that's something that I express to all my clients when we finally build that marketing portion. And it could be going great, and the sales team would be happy, and they communicate with us, and then all of a sudden we're in synergy, and the sales team's making money, marketing team's making money, and everybody's happy. Or there will be situations where the sales team says to us like, "Hey, this is not exactly what we're looking to see," and we have to be able as marketers to accept that feedback, go back to what we're doing, make the changes so that the sales team has that synergy, because then everybody starts to make money. It's kind of like the marketing is the front lines, and then
Correct.
the sales is the back end.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yep.
without one or the two, it's not going to happen, because you could have all the marketing in the world, have 10,000 interested leads, but you got nobody to talk to them. What might as
Exactly.
well. what,
Well,
what are you gonna do with them?
and sales and marketing need to uh and this may sound crazy to people listening or watching, is they need to come into an initial agreement on, this is who we serve, this is how we serve them, this is how we position it. But if those two things aren't agreed upon, the system's going to blow up, right?
100%.
Like, uh, and 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 there has to be that well, I say it this way: there has to be an expectation that when we do this, that there's going to be a feedback loop to make an improvement, that it's not going to be perfect up front. Like, I've done some sponsorships before, and a company came back to me to say, "Hey, you want to do another sponsorship?" I said, "Yes." I was like, "But we need to think about this differently, because I generated 20 odd leads, but only 3 of them were actual real leads. So we need to change what we're doing." They were open. They're like, "Yeah, okay, like, let's change this, let's do this." Like, okay, perfect, right? It's not that I didn't make money before, or I labeled it as a failure. I just realized, like, okay, I got this marketing machine sponsorship running. I just need to make adjustments, and that'll make it better, right? I didn't chalk it up to once and done failure. And I think way too many people try the once and done marketing or short-term marketing and go, "Oh, that didn't work," but there was no feedback loop on improvement or expectation that, like, hey, this is going to be 6 months, this is going to be a year before we perfect it. We're going to win some stuff, we're going to make some money along the way, we're not going to make as much as we want, but we're going to improve. And I just don't think many people who buy marketing take on that mindset.
I 100% agree with you. And I like what you said before about you had 20 leads, but only 3 were real leads. Just to build off that, there should be no difference in an MQL and an SQL. I hate
Mm,
that the two terms even exist, marketing qualified lead and sales qualified lead. There's no such thing as a marketing qualified lead that's not a sales qualified lead, and vice versa. It just
vanity
doesn't,
metric,
yeah,
vanity metric.
it makes no sense. It's like if your marketing team is telling you that the MQLs exist and the sales team is telling you that they can't close the MQLs, then there is no qualified leads. There is no point in putting these labels on them.
Yeah, and you need to know the distinction between, well, not between, but I'll just say the difference between an actual lead, how do I say this?
Qualified lead.
A qualified lead. Yeah, a qualified lead and not, right? Um, just because somebody looks like a prospect doesn't mean that they are, right? And um, if you're not able to get clear on that, you need to, or you're going to waste a lot of time, right? You're going to waste a ton of time. I had a client, Larry, who, when I met him uh, in February of 2018, he was closing about 10% of the proposals he was making on a monthly basis. And he was a fractional CFO, so he kept his numbers. And by October of that year, he was closing 70 to 80% of the proposals he was making. And most of the time, I'm sure not you. Most of the time, people when I say that, they think that he got more leads, and the opposite's true. He got less, because when people would come into a sales process, if he could identify if you were a quality ideal client profile, and if you were not, he basically kicked them out. He didn't move them down a sales process. So he went down his sales process with less people and closed more of them, because he knew when they look like this, there's a higher probability, and these things are present, there's a higher probability to close. And I think that not all leads are equal.
I
Ever.
Yep, 100% true. And to build off that, the whole less leads concept, that sometimes marketers like don't like to hear that because they're like, less leads. Why would we want less leads? But if you're really truly a good marketer, you're not looking at like the quantity of leads. You are
Bingo.
funneling out the quality on the way to the sales team. So
Yeah.
let's say you
Yeah.
have a sales funnel, and well, I mean, I guess there's two ways you can do it, right? You could put that responsibility onto the sales team, which means they're just going to have to take more sales calls, which is going to take more of their time and might result in less overall sales. Or the marketing team can handle that. And as they're coming through the funnel, they could sift through all these people and get rid of them before they get to the sales period.
Uh, Hold on.
So it's the responsibility of the marketing team to go through and really sift through all of these people, and that will create more sales, which in turn will also make the marketers look good. And that, like I said, whose responsibility is that? Well, in my opinion, it's the marketers, and which is weird coming from a marketer. You always say like, "Hey, it's not our fault that the leads are no good. It's your fault that you can't close them." But it is. I think it does fall on the marketing side to make the sales side much easier.
Oh God. Yeah, right. I mean, uh, would the marketing team want to work with a bunch of things that don't work? Right? No, they won't. Right? So neither does the sales team. Right? And uh, I bet, based on my experience, that your cost per lead, uh, I'll say it this way: your revenue and profit per lead goes through the roof if the marketing team qualifies them versus the sales team,
Oh yeah, hundred
right?
percent.
And that's the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that matters, right? Like, uh, uh, it's not a quality system. I think if that's not happening, or don't call them marketing qualified leads, just call them leads, right? Like we create a bunch
People.
of leads, people, yeah, whatever. Use some other word, right? Because marketing qualified lead does not apply, right? Because they're not ready to buy. They may just be fishing for information, and you could get them what they need without getting them to the sales team, right? If they're just looking for some information, hey, go here. Here's the information. When you're ready to buy, or you have this problem, come talk to us, right? I just think companies can be way more efficient when the marketing and sales work like we're talking about.
100%. I couldn't think of any way in which either side thinks they're winning the fight. Like I'm surprised it even existed for this long.
Totally. There should not be one, right? There shouldn't be one at all, right? It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous, right? I think it's stupid, to be blunt. It's stupid.
Well, I mean, at least we agree. So somewhere along the line, that synergy does exist.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we've been at it for quite some time, and I think it's about time that we wrap it up. So, Brian, what's one piece of advice that
Mhm.
you would give to a coach or consultant who is at a revenue block and is looking to scale past that in the next quarter?
I kind of said it
Yeah,
earlier.
I just realized you kind of did, but all
It's
right, one
okay.
there.
No, 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 it's okay because it's worth repeating. What got you here isn't going to get you there, right? So you need to do something differently. And I experienced this, right? Like when I hit revenue levels, I plateau and I take a step back. Okay, what do I need to do differently? And then I shoot up, right? Um, if you're stuck doing more of the same, ain't gonna work. You got to change something. And a lot of times, if you're a coach and consultant and you've hit capacity where I want to grow past my capacity, you need to do something that's leveraged because you're running out of time and I was going to say resources, but resources is the time, right? You need to do something differently. You need to do some type of marketing. But until then, right? Until then, you could probably fill up your time, um, but just take a step back, think about what do I need to do differently, and then go find resources that you can use or leverage to get you where you want to go. Another thing we were talking about earlier is you're not going to do this alone. I haven't met anybody that has ever done this alone at all, right? So you need to go find service providers that can help you break through that, mentors, whatever, to help you break through that because you can't see what's right in front of you. Somebody else can see it, but you're in it, you're thick in it. I would say do something differently. So if you're stuck and you're trying to grow past your capacity, that's what I would say. If you're not generating sales or the types of prospects or clients that you're looking for, you've got to dial in learning how to sell or do marketing differently because what you're doing ain't working. I mean, plain and simple, right? Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've seen too many people get stuck and fail, and not make any change. But the ones that I've crossed that do make change in whatever they need are the ones that are continuing to win today.
Well said. So tell everybody before we sign out of here, where could they find you and where could they find your business?
So they can find me where you and I met on LinkedIn. I'm doing a lot on LinkedIn. That's my main platform. My username on there is my last name, first name, McDonald Bryan, Bryan with a Y. And actually, every social media platform, my username is McDonald Bryan. And then you can find my business at onpurposegrowth.com.
All right, awesome. You can find me at the same thing on LinkedIn right here,
Yep.
Giuseppe Colino, right there. You can check out the name. And until next time, thank you for coming on, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. This is great.
All right, awesome.